Welcome back to Sex Crimes Defense Podcast with Chance and Jay. Chance Oberstein is a defense attorney who handles sex crimes in California. I'm a media professional. This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not intended to be legal advice. We're in part 3 of Sean Diddy Combs.
Of course we are, because it's a long story, and it's not, it's not easy. I mean, there are a lot of factors here to discuss from a legal standpoint, and a lot of things to think about from a social media standpoint. And so, yes, here we are.
Okay, great. So, all right, we've gone through a lot of the nuance and moments of the trial. We're talking about Sean Diddy Combs we're talking spring, summer 2025. This is before he's been sentenced, before he's served any time, which we're assuming he's going to serve time. What did you want to talk about next?
Well, what I want to talk about, I think, in this episode is what could he have done? I mean, what could he have done in terms of several strategic and reputational steps early on to potentially avoid this cascade of litigation that followed the initial lawsuit? And I think we can break this down a little bit and discuss it, intelligently, so that we can understand exactly what the result was here, and then take something from it. Because I think people listening to this podcast, they want to know the legal moral of the story.
Yes, right? And I think we all whenever we look in the rearview mirror, we think, what could we have done differently?
Exactly. And so the first thing we need to take a look at is, what did he do wrong? What did he do wrong? Well, the immediate denial, his public dismissal of her claims, and I'm talking about Ventura's claims, as a money grab, hardened public opinion and made future settlements appear defensive rather than proactive. That is a big deal. And then the rapid settlement without transparency, settling within 24 hours, gave the impression of damage control, not accountability. And I think that may or may not have been based on the fact that maybe someone had a surveillance tape. I don't know.
Oh.
But then following that, dismissive public statements. I mean, we've said it a million times. Don't say anything. But his Instagram post denying all allegations and accusing accusers of extortion fueled skepticism, and also invited further scrutiny. So, those are the things he probably should not have done. But he shouldn't have said,
let's pause there. So he shouldn't. Yeah, because this is common. In fact, what's interesting? You made me think of when we hear a response emphatically denies. I think the public has gotten to the point where when we hear emphatically denies, that means I did it and I'm emphatically denying it.
Right. I mean, we understand what the code language is, right? We understand the code language.
And so, yeah. And so pride, right? And this is biblical.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're a badass hip hop guy, yeah. This is all, this just ain't right. Okay. And then you take a hardcore stance.
What should he have said? We're going to take a look at all the facts. What do you say?
What could he have done differently?
Yeah.
Okay. So
no comment. We're still away. What do you say?
Here's where the rubber meets the road, I think.
Yeah.
For this type of, and this is, for his team, for him. Yeah. What could he have done differently? Could have issued a thoughtful public statement. He could have acknowledged her pain, even without admitting guilt. He could have shown empathy and maturity. He could have expressed a commitment to personal growth and accountability.
I take these allegations seriously, right? And I hope that we can come to resolution.
While working towards a resolution behind closed doors, okay? Expressing a commitment to personal growth and accountability that might have softened the public backlash once it was exposed. Could have done that, and then he could have engaged in mediation before litigation. How is that?
Which he wouldn't, right? There was no mediate, right? There was
Yeah,
no,
private mediation could have allowed both parties to reach a resolution without the spectacle of a lawsuit.
gosh.
It would have reduced the risk of discovery and the public airing of damaging evidence such as that surveillance tape. I mean, that's a
Okay.
big one.
So if you're a celebrity and you got some serious allegations and a tape or a recording, go to mediation and say something empathetic.
Well, certainly you want to go to mediation. You don't want anything exposed to the public, especially if someone's making an allegation, they can back it up with hardcore evidence. Of course you want to go to mediation first. And of course you want to stay quiet. And of course you don't want to go public. And guess what? Here's a third thing he could have done. He could have avoided combative language. How's that? Instead of calling the lawsuit offensive and outrageous, a neutral tone would have preserved goodwill and reduced the likelihood of additional accusers stepping forward, right? To line up to say, hey, that's not right either, and wanting to take him down. And how about this? This is something you might be attracted to. Proactive reputation management. Voluntarily stepping back from public roles, like TV things and such, and seeking therapy or counseling. That could have signaled
Rehab.
genuine
rehab.
remorse. He could have
Yeah.
been expressing remorse, nonverbal expression of remorse. How's that? And partnering with advocacy groups or funding survivor support initiatives might have reframed his public image once it started to spin out publicly. How's that? What do you think about that?
That's pretty interesting. I'm thinking about many things. I'm thinking about Diddy. I'm thinking about freak offs. I feel like, he's a rapper. He's the founder of Bad Boy Records. Everybody loves a great baby oil party to some degree. So I think that, I think there's an element of his image that he could have maintained. But I think you're right by denying harsh language. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what could I see Diddy doing that would actually seem authentic?
Well, whatever he could have done.
Or does authenticity even matter?
Well, it does. I think it does in a large degree. And I think that's the way you shift legal strategy. I mean, rather than settling immediately.
Maybe that's it. Somebody sits down with them and starts the psychological, listen, Diddy, we got to talk about this.
Instead of him telling them what he's going to do.
Right, there we go.
Maybe he should just sit down and listen to them.
And
tell them what to do.
This is an intervention, right?
Yeah.
Intervention.
Right, because I think powerful people somehow think that they are the ones who create the menu and then give it to everybody, so that they're on the same page and they do what they're supposed to do. Okay, but that's not the way these things work. The way these things work, if you really want them to work out right, is maybe you take the time to listen to good legal counsel, and then after thinking it through and discussing it more, create parameters and follow guidelines. I mean, rather than settling immediately, his team should have negotiated a structured agreement with confidentiality clauses and reputational safeguards. Does that make sense to you? Because that is listening to counsel. A phased settlement with restorative justice elements, like a public apology, charitable donations, might have satisfied Ventura while reducing long-term exposure.
He knew what he did to Cassie. Maybe he was just too far down the rabbit hole of, his power and violence trip. And maybe somebody tried to talk to him.
Well, I think it's always a matter of direction. It's either him giving his attorneys direction or attorneys giving him direction.
Maybe nobody gave him direction. He was still calling the shots.
Well, a lot of powerful people do that because they think they know more than anyone else, and they want people not to give them advice, but to carry out their orders. And typically that ends up in disaster. I mean, his initial response lacked nuance and failed to anticipate the reputational and legal domino effect that it was causing. A more measured, empathetic, and strategic approach could have prevented the escalation into federal charges and multiple civil suits. And that, my friend, is the moral of the story.
So maybe nobody was able to reach him on a psychological level, and he took the big dive because of it.
Well, you think about it. I mean, what if you would have just structured this the right way and just
And he didn't take
you
it seriously, right?
right if you well instead of getting defensive and going after anybody who accuses you of anything, okay, if you just take a step back and think it through with really good advice, think about where he'd be. He wouldn't be in custody, probably. He wouldn't have shelled out all that money for all this trial and everything else. He wouldn't be pending all these other civil lawsuits. He wouldn't have lost all this time and money and energy and maybe a substantial portion of his life in custody, right? I mean, who knows what that impact statement from Cassie's going to do in terms of sentencing? And who knows who else is going to line up and give impact statements? And who knows how the judge is going to filtrate that and think about those things that were proven, that were not proven, and the impact of individuals that have come under his control and coercion. Okay, there's a lot going into this. If you think that doesn't matter, you're absolutely wrong. You could be the greatest legal talent in the world, but the judge looks at everything that came in during trial and considers all these statements and all these thoughts by all these people lining up to speak their truth. And so that's why I say I don't know where it's going to land sentencing wise, but I can tell you this: I don't have a good feeling about it, and that's because I think that it wasn't a partial victory; it was a total loss. It just wrong strategy, wrong way of handling it from inception, and this is the outcome of it.
Wow. Wow. Well, your perspective really gives me a lot to think about. And that's what Sex Crimes Defense Podcast is all about. So we really hope that you have enjoyed all three parts of our analysis of the Diddy Combs trial in 2025. Please do go and listen to some of our other case reviews and analysis where the law meets social commentary. I'm Jay. Chance, thank you so much for this.
My pleasure. It has been great. Thank you.
All right, I'll see you on the next one.
Thanks. Will do.